Hey everybody, I want to give a quick intro to the podcast you're about to listen to. I'm on a hike here at one of my favorite spots in the Mojave Desert. And the podcast is pretty short, 15 minutes, but this intro is so important. And I know not everyone's going to listen. This will probably fall on a lot of deaf ears, but I'm hoping you can come back to it later, really plant some seeds now, because you will need this advice later. Let me tell you this much I do know. So, here's a couple points. I'm just going to get right to it. Is God leading you, or is looks leading you? And let me preface this by saying I've went through a lot, even recently as I get older. And even as a believer, a Christian, I'm unapologetic about this, my faith in Christ, and it's changed me. But there's the old Shane that still lives in this house. I don't like it. And so I want to follow God, but then, as men, looks, and as you get older, especially young adults, and we've got this image. So you have to make sure when it comes to this topic that I'm going to get into in the podcast, TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, peptides, from ipamorelin to tesamorelin to 5-amino-1-MQ, and these peptides and TRT and longevity. But is God leading you, or looks? Is that leading you? Because that's going to really tilt the scale in the future. But let me just get into a few things. Who are you listening to? That is so important on this topic. Who are you listening to? And again, I've blown it. I've listened to all these guys out there, and I continue to. To some degree, I want to learn and get insight, but I allow people who don't even love God, who believe in evolution, to influence me, or who are very prideful and arrogant, and they're influencing me. So you have to ask, who is influencing you? If you're focused on looks and what these guys are saying, look at this guy. And I can name a lot of guys. I've followed them. I've got a background in health and fitness. But it does beg the question, are we looking to the Reacher and The Rock to influence us? Schwarzenegger and Sulik? Man, look, if I could just look like that. Let me tell you, it might feel good for a season, but it is hell, because it's a form of idolatry. And you always have to maintain this. You always have to look this certain way. And it's a constant focus. It's a constant draw on your energy spiritually and physically, emotionally, and mentally. And for you who are single, man, I'm going to, get jacked and look, I'm going to find Mrs. Right. Let me tell you, Mrs. Right is not looking for a bodybuilder. Mrs. Right is not looking for a guy who is just so focused on his looks that they will take a back seat, and so will your kids. Trust me on this. I've lived it. I know it. It's a hard lifestyle. You got to put things in perspective. So if you want to find Mrs. Right, you have to be Mr. Right. And yes, it involves taking care of your body, but not putting that above everything else, and not about how I look. If I don't have a six pack, if I'm not, 220 pounds and muscular, but we have all these idols. Again, what are we watching on TV? And from Reacher to The Rock, from Schwarzenegger to Sulik, all these people are influencing us. And, it shouldn't be that way. We have to be very careful. Who are we listening to? And then, okay, single. What about if you're a family man? We hear the thing, a dad bod. Nobody wants a dad bod anymore. And that's, it's hard, because the balance is, I want to look and feel good, not look good to look good, but to feel good about the weight I carry, and have longevity and time with my family and more energy. And, but it's not about, because then I've got to measure how much brown rice I have, this amount of chicken breast, I've got this amount of grams of protein, I can't go to that party, I can't eat like that. And then everybody else is put on the back burner. So as a family man, you will put your looks and your body above your family, and it will hurt your family. I've been there, done that. I'm telling you, this is all coming from experience. Back in the day. I'm trying not to do that now, but it is difficult. So I know not all of you are going, I don't care what he says, I want to look like such and such. Well, let me tell you, that body will fail you. Look at Arnold Schwarzenegger now versus what he was. Look at Ronnie Coleman now versus what he was. From Dorian Yates, Flex Wheeler, having his leg amputated. How many bodybuilders have died because it's a form of idolatry? So just be very careful. I think we can take care of our body. Can people take things? And, if the doctor thinks it's recommended and you sought God, again, I'm going to get into the podcast. I'm not going to talk about it here, but let me tell you, there are side effects TRT therapy, they found that, it really doesn't affect the heart too bad. Okay, but did you know about rising blood pressure? Did you know about mood swings, severe mood swings in TRT therapy? And, aggressiveness, depression, peptides. You take some of the peptides, the injection, you feel weird all over. People say that they just get nauseous and they get headaches. You want to take that every day, and you're signaling a pathway to the growth hormone, pituitary gland, things like that. And these things have side effects. So what I do is okay, if I'm going to, my motto is to not take anything as I get older unless I have to. So just so everyone knows, have I tried certain things in my past? Of course. But my motto is, okay, Lord, you created me. But if he leads me, let's say, to peptide therapy or something, it depends what peptides you're talking about. Some I think, BPC 157 for injuries. There's some that, but is it producing joy in my life? And I can tell, man, God's really using this, or is it producing depression, frustration? I'm just not looking like how I want to look. And now I got to go work out all the time. And so now what I thought would be helpful has actually become harmful. So I think we need to be, very careful in this area. So anyway, I hope those things help. When I get in, the podcast is going to explain a little bit more, but I want to set this up as really the foundation to think about all these things, because who is influencing you is huge. Most of the people taking peptides are listening to people who are very knowledgeable about peptides, but they don't know God. It's all about the looks and stacking and let me just tell you, I want to be careful, of course, but I know these people, some of these people, and people who know these people, and they are not happy. They are miserable. If my body fat's a certain percentage, if I'm gaining my weight back, remember, I think it's called homeostasis, or I get it confused with homeostasis. Stasis is what doesn't kill you, will make you stronger, but your body's going to return back often, and so you've got to be working out all the time and looking like this, and it's a form of idolatry that's very destructive, and we reap what we sow. So with that as a context, now check out this podcast on this topic. Welcome to this next episode of Idleman Unplugged, where I talk about anything from health and fitness to theology. I might even talk about politics, and nothing is off the table as long as it is productive. And I do want to do an important topic today. I'm not sure on the title yet, but it's going to have to do with TRT, peptides, idolatry, body worship, image. And I've been getting a lot of requests lately, and I've been talking to mainly younger adults. Here I am now, later on in my life, and having lived that life of the gym business, the gym industry. Also want to recommend two of my books we put on audio, and they're also available as free downloads. Free downloads at westsidechristianfellowship.org. You can find all 12 of my books there on everything from revival. That's really what my heart is for, but I want to help people in other areas too. Revival, and then health and fitness, God's way. So it came up, and it's been coming up a few different times. I was on a popular podcast, and I talked about how, it can become a form of idolatry if we put too much emphasis on our body. And on the flip side, if we just don't take care of this wonderful gift God has given us, that can also be just as problematic for sure, because that would be lazy and slothful versus idolatry. So I believe there's a happy middle there. And right now, there's tons of popular YouTube videos, and it's influencing a lot of young adults. They're on the junk, they're on the gear, they're on roids, they're on TRT therapy, they're on peptides. And this, they want to look big and strong and like The Rock and Schwarzenegger. And so I understand that as a guy, and being in that living in that time frame. Back when I was lifting, it was people like Dorian Yates, Ronnie Coleman, and others were coming on the scene. I've worked out at a gym, different gyms where I saw a lot of the professional bodybuilders. And I guess my message is, nothing in life is going to ultimately fulfill you. You can look at Schwarzenegger now. Look at me now. Compared, we're the same height, 6'2". I was at my best, probably 210 pounds. He was 240, and it just, it deteriorates. Lee Haney, Flex Wheeler, one of the best physiques I ever saw. I think he had one of his legs amputated. Ronnie Coleman now debilitating surgeries, and Dorian Yates. And so what we make our idol is eventually going to come at a price. So my message has always been full surrender to God. Full surrender to God. Take everything to prayer. Life is not perfect, but you can get through the ups and downs. The more I want to look like somebody and want this big physique, it's idolatry. It's a form of body worship. And it's things a lot of us struggle with. Women struggle with their issues. Men struggle with their issues. But there's a big difference between a struggle and a lifestyle. And then I remember I'm measuring my calves. My right calf is smaller. I'm trying to work on this is getting ridiculous. But you find out as you get, and there's a 21-year-old now. He's real popular on YouTube. Great big physique. But, it's going to come at a price. It never pays off, and there's nothing that takes the place of having a deep, intimate relationship with Jesus Christ via repentance. And then God fills you with the Spirit. Then life is full of peace and joy. There's long suffering, there's challenges, but now God is your focus, not idolatry, not on body worship. And so, but do want to explain this a little bit because a lot of questions come in. People, should I take this therapy? The big thing right now that you're seeing a lot of on different places is TRT. TRT therapy is just short for testosterone replacement therapy. And so let me just say up front, I'm not against medication in many cases. I just don't think they should be our first resort. I think a lot of people jump to the medication instead of, okay, Lord, what do you want? Look at my diet, look at my lifestyle, because your diet and lifestyle, everything from alcohol, non-activity, weight gain, the junk food, all of that can really, really hinder testosterone. Not only that, they're finding a lot of in the deodorants we're using, the hair products, a lot of these things can really decrease testosterone as well. So testosterone is a building block. It's a hormone. And so TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, is your doctor could prescribe. And that's really the difference. It's good to bring this up. When people say they're on steroids versus I'm on TRT therapy from my doctor, to me, there's a big difference. For example, TRT therapy, you're probably getting 100 milligrams of, let's say, a testosterone, a cypionate, a propionate, an ethanate, one of those once a week, 100 milligrams, and that's it, and they measure your blood work. Where steroids, you could be taking 400 milligrams of testosterone, then you're throwing in some decadurbolin, you're throwing in some Anavar, some Anadrol, taking some growth hormone, some Equipoise, some Winstrol V, and you just Dianabol, you're just a mess. Anadrol versus Anavar, it's much more toxic on the liver, stronger steroid. And so a steroid is a hormone, especially testosterone. That's why it's called. The difference between like a steroid for inflammation is it's not an androgenic anabolic steroid. Androgenic meaning male hormone, anabolic meaning growth steroid. And then there's other steroids that work with inflammation, things like that. Those are not the same thing. Somebody says, I'm on steroids, I'm gaining weight. Well, it might not be the right type of steroid you're thinking about. So personally, I would be against any of that if you're young. Your testosterone level is very high, 20s, 30s, it starts to decrease after that. And even in your 40s, you can have high testosterone levels. Even in your 50s, you can have high testosterone levels. And ideally, natural is always good, because when you're giving yourself synthetic testosterone, and men, women have testosterone as well, just not as much. And men, your testes, the testicles actually begin to not be used anymore. And that's what happens. They shrivel up, because you're not using them anymore. And it's hard to recapture that natural production of testosterone again. So look at the cost, because 99% of the reason people take it is to look better. Idolatry, right? But if you're saying, hey, I've counseled a couple men recently, just overweight, no energy, sex drive is down, and their blood work showed their testosterone, below 200. And it's like, hey, if you pray about it and God leads you to do that, that's between you and him, and they feel much better. But however, there is a cost. You are probably going to be not addicted, but required to take it maybe for the rest of your life. Some people are okay with that. You can cycle on, cycle off, but then when you cycle off, your strength deteriorates, your body starts looking flat again, and then see, it's about looks again. So you really want to make sure you remove, okay, Lord, I'm just happy. I want to be healthy. I want to have time and energy for people. I want to do your will, but also I want to keep taking care of this gift you've given me. So that's what testosterone replacement therapy is. And I wouldn't recommend it probably unless you're over 50. And the doctor, you've prayed about it and there's just, you want to, you need to do something. But again, I would look at all the diet lifestyle choices first. And then right now, as I'm recording this, the big thing is peptides. And peptides, there's a ton of different types of peptides. I can't go into all those. But the big thing about peptides is, like ipamorelin or CJC, CJC with ipamorelin or tesamorelin. These are called, the exact terminology I don't know, but it's what they do is they send signals. Peptides are certain strands of proteins, and it will tell your pituitary gland to produce more growth hormone. Okay, the pituitary gland producing more growth hormone. And so that's more of a natural way. You're not taking synthetic HGH, human growth hormone. You're having your body do it naturally, but some of those things have side effects, as well. And so, people mix that with the testosterone, and that's that peptide therapy, or they don't take any type of replacement therapy. They just try the peptide, and the peptides can work good. It's more of a natural thing, but I don't know if the FDA is going to regulate them. I don't know. The side effects could be, again, all these things you need to take to the Lord. He might allow somebody to do this for a season, to really get back on track. And then you have things like 5-amino-MQ, which is more of a tablet where it binds to a certain, type of element in your body that you're able to break down fat better and build muscle. Then there's BPC 150. Yeah, BPC 157, I believe. That's more of like for healing and health. TB 500, kind of the same thing. But, just taking all these things and not having a plan, not knowing how they work, can be detrimental. Why are you taking them? And so I think once we answer the why, if you take some time praying and fasting, have peace about it, you're doing it the right way. You've looked at all the different avenues, God might open that door for you. But that's the key to remember, is when it can become like, look, I'm gaining 20 pounds and I'm big and I want to walk around with my shirt off. As a Christian, that's not the direction you want to go. Now, granted, we all want to, look better with our shirt off. I want to still lose weight just because health benefits, as you get older, high blood pressure, longevity is, for me, it's not about living longer just to live longer. It's about being more productive. And so if I can feel better as I get older and take off 20, 30 extra pounds and be able to move better and have more energy, and they're finding that longevity has a lot to do with calorie restriction. I know that can be a bad term sometimes. Calorie restriction, intermittent fasting, you don't need to consume so much. And it goes back to when you're taking testosterone replacement therapy or testosterone or steroids in more of abundance, you have to eat more calories because that protein is a building block for the muscle. And so you're eating more and you're just not eating maybe a great diet. And, a lot of these popular diets now with carnivore, where it's just meat only. I mean, I won't even get into that. I have in other podcasts. I look at what has God given us to eat? How did God create us, right? How did God create us? Well, He's created us to eat primarily plants, whole plant-based food. That's the primary food for creation. And then we also, meat and dairy are allowed as long as they're clean and different things like that. But my biggest hope and reason for putting this out was to just encourage all of you, especially young adults. You're not going to find more fulfillment in looking bigger and better. You actually, you will for a season because, it feels better. Endorphins are going and serotonin and things like that. But then there's a big down as well too. And the more you do that, the more puffed up you become, the more prideful you become. I often noticed that I wanted to be in more fights when I was in my 20s, 10 foot tall and bulletproof and bigger, stronger. And, and you become more arrogant. it's all about you. So especially if you're married, or if you're looking for a wife, remember to find Mrs. Right, you first have to be Mr. Right. So is God going to bring you somebody, a gracious Proverbs 31 woman, while you're all about yourself? Probably not. A lot of those things have to die in you before Christ can really live in you. So it's so important. Because even as a dad, I don't want them thinking, oh, it's all about me. And I remember I used to measure, a cup of brown rice and then 6-ounce chicken breast and weigh it on the scale and have it packed in my Tupperware. Sometimes I still pack things in Tupperware or glass containers more, just because I want to bring something healthy. I'm going to eat in a few hours. And you have to be good stewards of your body. You have to be selective. You have to be careful. And I think God wants us to steward this gift he has given us with our health, as long as it doesn't become idolatry, meaning it's what we focus on. I got to get up and do this. I got to, look like this. I got to work out. And if I'm going to work out but miss a ministry opportunity, then I'm going in the wrong direction. If I have to do a podcast but miss visiting a widow, I'm going in the wrong direction. So you have to look at your life. You have to take inventory. And I will tell you, and I want to word this right, but the more you get into this and the bigger you become, the harder you will fall. Can you imagine, think at Schwarzenegger now when he looks in the mirror, or all these other professional bodybuilders, or even what a person used to look like. But you don't have to be that way. You can be in your 50s, 60s. Mark Sisson, I think that's how I pronounce his last name, with Primal Kitchen. He's 70. And he looks, really good because he takes care of his body. I don't know if these people are believers, but for a believer, how much more so should we be taking care of our body? But not to where it becomes an obsession. And that is a hard balance to find, because I don't want to be obsessed, but I want it to be a priority. I don't want it to be a priority that takes priority over God or my family, but I want it to be a priority. And so the more you put into this, the more, for me, it's who I became. I don't know if I can find the old picture of me. Maybe I will insert it here, but it's, and now all this comes apart. Now, maybe you end up in the hospital, you lose 30 pounds, or you have to, this type of liver disease or this, and all of this that you're building will come crumbling down. That's why Jesus said, he who builds his life on the rock, which is him, and his word, and obeying his word, that house will never fall. And so that is my concern with a lot of these guys. Remember, the more testosterone you take, the more angry you will become, the more arrogant you will become. Roid rage is a real thing, because testosterone makes us aggressive. So if you're taking more testosterone, you're not only stopping your own production of testosterone, you are becoming more enraged, often more arrogant, more, it's all about you. Like a lot of these guys, they were like, and I was turning into just a monster. Just all about me, all about the food, all about the workout, all about my sleep. I can't go here. I can't go there. If I go to the beach, I want to look this. It's just an all-consuming, deadly form of idolatry. So I would just really caution you. I wouldn't get into any of those things. If you're young, you don't need to look like such and such. And that's definitely a form of idolatry. And also, if you're older, like my age, pray about it. And maybe God will open a door to use something like a peptide to help stimulate growth, or HGH, or maybe a doctor will recommend therapy, and you want to do that for a season. I would take it to prayer and see where God leads you. But ultimately, what is the reason? If a person's going to take something, okay, I need to be more productive. I need to find out what's going on. My energy levels, my libido, I'm getting fatter, overweight, no energy, no drive, and you can offset that and start to exercise, feel better. But the only problem is usually you're going to have to, whatever it takes to get that ways, you're going to have to do that to maintain that. So what I would do is I would get rid of alcohol, nicotine, smoking, lots of caffeine, junk food, and start, doing natural solutions to testosterone, and then see if you also need therapy after that based on blood work and things like that. So anyway, I hope that helped. My main point was just wanting to make sure we don't focus on idolatry in the way we look. Again, you can download all my books for free at westsidechristianfellowship.org. Again, that's westsidechristianfellowship.org. And I don't want to, go into a lot more details, because I'm not a doctor with peptides. And, it's always good to talk to your doctor. They know what medication you're on. They know the needs you have. They can supervise your type of lifestyle change. So anyway, hope that helped on this episode of Idleman Unplugged.